Okay, so I'm going to start with this video, and I'll talk about the horse and what he's doing, and then I will talk about you. So when you start out on the bottom, he's a little pacey. You'll see you kind of have a soft bounce in the saddle because then it turns into a step pace. And then as you go up the hill, he gets more collected because the hill puts him on his back end, and then he gets a nice running walk going. So right here, you'll see his back foot land, then his front foot, but they're almost coming off the ground together. So it's more of a step pace. And then as you're going up the hill, what happens is the weight of the horse naturally goes on its back end because of the incline. So it's collecting him due to the incline, and that helps him to separate his legs. So now you'll see his legs separating more. The back leg comes off, then the front leg, the back leg, then the front leg, and then the back leg lands, and then the front leg lands. And then as you get towards the top of the hill, you'll see his head starting to shake more, and then his ears actually starting to flop, okay? Those are all signs that then you're getting a good gait, but it's the incline that's doing the work. So he does look like he could have a nice gait if you helped him. Now I'm going to stop it for a second. Okay, so your leg's not as far forward as Patty's, but it could be back a little bit more. You might benefit from making your stirrup go up one hole. See if that helps you to get your leg back more. Your leg otherwise looks good. With your pelvis, I would tilt a little bit more forward because that usually helps the pacey horses. And then with your upper body, instead of being just upright, I would also tilt a little bit more forward. Think of having your shoulder just a couple more inches forward, because getting that weight on their front end can help them. Your rein contact is good, but it's not helping him enough. Let me see if it'll start again. So I would like a little bit of a tighter rein to keep him more collected. And I'd like to see his nose tucked in a little bit more. Let me go back to the other one. So I'm gonna point out some other stuff. So as he comes down the hill, you'll see his head's a little bit higher versus when he's going up the hill, he starts it lower, which helped you. And as he comes down the hill and he's pacing, you're gonna see his head go a little side to side like this. So what we want to do when they're trying to get pacey, because going down the hill does make the horses that are on the pacey side pace more. You have to go down all the hills much slower. You have to hold their head straight so they can't swing it side to side. And you might have to half halt every step that they're going down the hill and keep it slow. And then as you go up the hill, then you can start going a little bit faster. But I would want to make sure you got a flat walk first before you start going for a running walk, because the speed you guys are going up the hill is not a flat walk, but more towards a running walk speed. And again, here you can see that you're kind of, sorry, I'm trying to find my finger while I'm looking at this. You're kind of sitting back, and when you're going up the hill and on the flat, I would have your pelvis tilted a little bit more forward and your upper body tilted a little bit more forward. Going down the hill, you do have to sit back and half halt and keep them slow. So I don't want you to think you have to lean forward when you're going down hills. Just on the flat and going up the hill would help him more. And then as you go up the hill, he starts to engage his back end. You'll see his head come lower, see his ears flopping. So he actually separated his legs more, but he's driving more with his back end, and then he lowered his head, or you asked him to lower his head. So this head carriage here is better for him to help him with his gait, because it's going to round his back instead of inverting it, which is like a U, is an inversion. You want to round his back, have him drive with his back end so he reaches up underneath him. And then he's going to be able to have his legs separated more. So as you do this on the flat, and I know you sent another video, so I'll talk on that one, you're going to half halt, and you might have to do some lateral movements like a circle or leg yielding or some serpentining to kind of help separate his legs. And then anytime he's doing it pretty well, we want to stop, give him a scratch or a little treat, and tell him he's a good boy so he knows that's what we're trying to get, because the horses really don't understand the difference between pacing, flat walk, and running walk To them, they're all just moving forward. So we're trying to communicate to them that this is what we want. But you'll see, compared to when you were down there further, now his head and neck is more round, his head is more on the vertical, and he's actually gaiting much better. But you're still kind of sitting back a fair amount. You're not in a complete chair position, but your upper body, you know, it'd be better either if it was straight up and down or tilted a little bit forward until he gets his gait better. Okay, so now here you are in slow motion, and it's hard to see, but you got a little soft bounce in the saddle, so that's more like a step pace. His head's going a little side to side, but now as you start going up the hill, you'll see those legs separate more. You'll see you're not bouncing as much, and he starts reaching under himself because of the hill, lowering his head and driving up that incline. And so that's helping to get his gait. So in the beginning, when you get his gait, again, this is going to be too fast. We want to get the flat walk done first. And then once you get the flat walk established and you get him conditioned, then he's going to be able to hold the running walk. And in the beginning, it'll be a little bit slower than this if you're on the flat, versus when you're on a hill, you can always go faster because the hill is going to help you. Okay, but this is the better head carriage. Now his head's starting to go up a little bit. And in time, once he can hold his gait and he's doing well, then having his head up is okay. But right now, we want to keep that head down to help him to get his gait much better, okay? So it's going to be more contact, keeping his head on the vertical. And instead of having any slack in the rein at all, oh, there it goes. I'm going to stop it for a second. Oh, I can't stop it. Instead of having any slack in the rein, we want to make sure that it's a little bit tighter hold, just till he understands what we're trying to get. Okay. So here you were riding, it was mostly on flat ground, and then it goes downhill a little bit. With all the downhills, until the horse is established in his gait, and even when he is established in the gait, if they are on the pacey side, you have to go down all the hills much slower to keep them in gait. So you're going to have to go a lot slower to keep him smooth. As you're going here, he was shaking his head and he was doing the correct footfall, but then as you go around the corner, it starts to change and he starts to go more for a pace. So when he's doing the correct gait, he's going to have the back leg come off the ground first, then that front leg's going to come off. Then the back leg's going to land, and then the front leg's going to land. So that's the footfall for a running walk, and it's also the footfall for like a saddle gait and a rack. They're all the same thing, except with the running walk and flat walk, they have overreach, and that's why their head is shaking. So right there, you were pretty good. And when you started off, you were kind of going the speed of the flat walk, and then he starts to get a little bit faster. And again, I already talked about your body position, so I'm not going to talk about that now. So we're going to look at his legs. So there he was pretty good for a flat walk. Now you start going downhill, and you see immediately it starts getting bouncy because he starts going towards a pace because his weight is just going on that front end. And see how those legs are now together on that side? Sorry, it's getting blurry as I'm getting closer. So we have to help him get down the hill. So you're going to have to go a lot slower in the beginning. In the beginning, you might just have to walk because sometimes even if you're going the speed of the flat walk, they'll go to the pace. So you might have to bring him all the way back to a walk and get him just to get that correct footfall at a plain walk. The other thing you have to do with every step downhill, you're going to have to half halt, and you might have to either move his shoulders or his hindquarter or leg yield back and forth to help him to separate his legs. So here we're going way too fast because he keeps getting pacey. And you get a little head shake in there, but it's really not a good gait. Now it starts going, I think you start going downhill again. So see all that bouncing in the saddle? It's not a hard bounce, so some people think that's an okay gait, but he's got a much better gait in him. So you shouldn't be bouncing up and down at all on this horse. So now he's really getting pacey, and he's got all that weight on his front end instead of driving with his back end. So if you're going to ride in this area, I would go slower. I would make lots of circles, leg yielding, serpentining, and get him to get the correct footfall. The hard part when you turned and went uphill, the reason it didn't help you that much is because once they get stuck in that pace, and this is the same thing when you're trail riding. I tell everybody with the pacey horses, go really slow downhill. because if you're going downhill and you go uphill and they pace down the hill, when you go up the hill, they're going to stay in a pace because now it's so easy for them and it's a swinging gait. They just swing their legs instead of using their body. That's why they like to do it, because it's easy. But they don't use their top line and they don't use their abdomen and their muscles. So anytime you go downhill and they're pacing, it's best to stop at the bottom, go back to a walk, and then slowly speed up as you're going uphill to, you know, get his other gait. So he just kept pacing up the hill because he paced down the hill and then he just kept going. So you do have a little head shaking in there and people would think, oh, then that's the gait, but it's not. His head's not shaking because he's doing the correct thing. So now he's doing a little bit more of kind of like a step pace, so it's smoother, and his head keeps changing. It keeps going up and then it keeps going down. Now the hard part too with people bringing their head down is just down. That's not the trick. We're trying to round their back and get them to relax, but you got to get them to drive with their back end. So if their head is down, but all their weight is still on their front end here, then that's not going to help you to get the gait. So we need him to rock back and get his weight on his back end, because most horses carry all their weight on, well, a fair amount of weight on their front end. It's like 60% and 40% on the back. We want him to get 60% on his back end and 40% on the front, and then get it lighter over time. So he's still got a fair amount of weight on his front end, even though his head is down. And then as you go uphill, again, since he was pacing, he just kind of kept pacing. Then it gets a little bit better, but still see that bounce that you're getting there. So, and then the hard part, I'm going to stop it for a second. The hard part, you think he's doing the right thing, so you stop and reward him. And so he goes, oh, that's good. That's what she wants. Okay, I'll do that again. But we don't want to stop until we really get that correct footfall. And you don't want to accept mediocre. You want to accept excellence. And I think you can get it with this horse, but you're going to have to work at it. So you want to do lots of exercises, like in the arena where you stop, back up, and then go forward again. And I'll send you a video of doing that because you're trying to get his weight on his back end and get his front end lighter. Then you want to make bending circles, but all at just a slow walk with his head on the vertical and get him reaching underneath himself. The circles help them to reach underneath themselves, and that bend will help to separate their legs. And on my website, I have directions on lateral movements, so how to do the serpentine, how to do the circles and the bending. If you don't know how to do that, all those exercises are on there. Okay, so now this is in slow motion. So you'll see the back leg come off and the front leg, the back leg and then the front leg. So you think it's a good gait, but we want more separation between those legs than he's getting, because the more separated those legs are, the smoother the gait will be. So as he goes downhill, the back leg and the front leg start to come off closer together. So the back leg's still coming off first, but they start to get closer. And the more you go downhill, then those legs start swinging more instead of him driving. And he's got some overreach. He's kind of stepping into that front hoof print. But if he's doing his gait correctly, he'll start overreaching even more, which will give you a smoother ride. Now see how the legs still are coming off at a different time? So people would think that's right, but he's going more towards that step pace, and then he's getting that little swing in his head from side to side. So we got to slow down, collect him, half halt with each step, and make him go much slower down that hill. And if you can, work in an arena where it's flat or on inclines. And when you go downhill, just do a plain walk and very, very slow. And if he paces when you're slow and going downhill, then you want to walk a couple steps, stop. Walk a couple steps, stop. Because that'll also help him to learn to rock back on his back end. So now the legs are closer together when they're coming off the ground. They're still separated, but they're closer. So that's why it's just not as smooth as it could be. So what I would recommend is I would work on the flat or inclines. Try anytime you're going down a decline to go very, very slow, or you could put poles out there, which would help you going down the declines. And then in the arena, I would use poles. And what I would do is warm him up. I'm going to pause this for a second. I would, let him walk around the arena like 5 minutes in the beginning. And then I would do the arena routine I've posted, and I'll send you a link to that, because it works on circles and serpentines and leg yielding, and all those things help to loosen your horse up and separate their legs. And I would do all that at a walk first, and then I would keep him in a circle, and I would work on your flat walk, and I would try to flat walk for 5 minutes. If he's pacing while you're circling the arena, I would get off and get a couple of poles, anywhere from 3 to 4 poles, and I would put them in the circle. And then I would stay slow, and Patty can do this too. And then as you get closer to the pole, you can ask for a little speed. So as you ask for a little speed, that pole will help separate their legs so they don't go into the pace. And then you slow back down after the pole if they don't stay smooth. And then when you get to the next pole, you'll do the same thing. You'll speed up a little bit in front of it, and then you'll slow down after it. It seems like you'll never get there doing that exercise, but it does work. And you'll do it 5 minutes each direction. And then over time, the horse will actually start rocking back on their hind end. But you also want to help them anytime they feel pacey. Think of half halting on that rein and slowing them down until you get a clearer footfall. And so I'll send you some videos that show me doing this with somebody in their lesson and how we smooth their horse out, because their horse was also pacey. And then as you work on this, you can send me little clips and I'll tell you if you're doing it right or wrong, or his head's in the right direction or not, or your body position. But I think with those things, you could get this horse gaiting pretty nicely. And it just takes time and patience. And then the other thing, which everybody hates to hear, is don't go fast until we fix their gait. Because if you go out riding with your friends and you're like, well, they're all going fast and they're all trotting, and you let your horse pace, they will always pace. So you have to keep your horse at the gait that they can do well and not go faster than that. Because anytime you accept them pacing, then they think it's okay and they will always pace. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'll send you some examples. But again, I think you did a good job. I just think this horse could gait better, but he looks like he's a nice, kind horse and that he's willing to do what you want. He's just not sure exactly what gait he's supposed to do.